Well, good evening, everybody. It's Cutler here on the Let's Talk the Cutler platform, the Let's Talk the Cutler broadcast, and I'm delighted to be here with you. I hope that you're having a fantastic week, a fantastic evening. As we are every week, I'm here for only 1,800 seconds, trying to make every minute matter, every moment meaningful, and every second significant. I want to thank you for inviting me into your homes, your hearts, your houses, whatever space you've allowed me to share. Good evening, everybody. I'm delighted for you to let me in, your kitchen, your living room, your family room, whatever space you've decided to share. Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. Again, it's Thursday, October the 19th. Can you believe we are just 1 week out from Thanksgiving? Just 1 week. Of course, we are. That's right. 1,800 seconds. And I want to shout out our LTTC VIPs, the first ones who joined me over in our chat this evening. As you're coming on, as you're coming in, make sure that you invite somebody else. Make sure that you invite somebody else. So do me a favor. Why don't you share this broadcast? If this is your first time here, make sure that you subscribe and then click that bell just to be notified whenever we are on live and whenever we are broadcasting. Because sometimes I like to show up unannounced, like I did this evening. I sort of showed up unannounced. But listen, our LTTC VIPs for the evening are Jackie, Yvonne, and Nisi. You guys are the LTTC VIPs for this evening. Again, why don't you go ahead and right down there, do a thumbs up on this conversation. We're going to talk about so many things. I want to ask you all, have you ever questioned your purpose in life? Have you ever said, what is my purpose? What am I here for? What am I supposed to be doing? And then we're going to chit chat about. We're going to chit chat about. I want to talk to people who. Do you confess the truth that much? Sometimes we hold on to bits and pieces of the truth. I want to chat about that. I want to be transparent and share with you some funny stories as I think about that. And then we're going to really just talk about being who we are called to be, and looking at this thing that's called potential. All right. So then, okay, all right. So we're going to look at our conversation for this evening. But as you all know, we're basing our conversation on this book, Billboards to Better, 366 Daily Sources of Motivation and Inspiration Along the Highway of Life. All right, let's get to talking, you all, because, we're pulling our quotes and our subject from this book. And if you don't have it, you can go on over to Amazon, get it. You can go and get it, rather. You can go on over to gbcutler.com and pick it up as well. But I want to talk from the 18th, the 19th, and the 20th, the 18th, the 19th, and the 20th. And then we're going to see how this conversation is going to pan out. So let's just talk. Let's look at our source, our quote for November the November the 19th and the 18th, rather. We'll do 18th, 19th, and 20th. Because every Tuesday we do Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Every Thursday we do Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday. Saturday, take the quote, read it, use it as a source of as a conversation start, a moment of meditation, however you choose to use it. Go right ahead. All right. So then let's look at November the 18th. I'm glad to have you all here. November 18th, the author says, if we are going to be overcomers, let's overcome. If we are going to be winners, let's win. And if we are going to be believers, let's believe. Now, I know that sounds simplistic. It sounds I'm not sure how that sounds to you, but it almost sounds commonsensical. If we're going to be believers, let's believe. If we're going to be winners, but you all know, let's do what we have the potential to do. That's really why I wrote that. The goal is for us to do what we have the potential to do. Let's do what we have the capacity to do. Let's do what we have the power to do. Let's do what we have the strength to do. Because I'm sure we all remember there was a slogan, and one company had the slogan, just do it. And there's so much more to that than just those words that seem to suggest just do it. I was having this conversation just today with someone, And we were talking about how so many times we have things within our reach, we have things within our grasp, but we will sit and die before we take full advantage of the stuff, before we take full advantage of the things that we have access to. It's almost like, and you all tell me if you've ever done this. Put a note in the comments if you've ever done this. If you've ever sat in your house with your coat and your hat and maybe gloves and socks, and you have all of that stuff on, about to freeze, when all you have to do is get up and walk to the thermostat. It is as if you have access to the very thing that will save your life. And while it seems comical and comedic in terms of sitting in your house freezing when you could just get up and walk to the thermostat, think about how many times we sit in suffering, we sit in silence, we sit in anxiety, we sit in depression, and we sit in so many places when we really do have access to something that can save our lives, but we don't necessarily get up and take advantage of the thing that can save our lives. I'm not talking about people who don't have complete access to it, but I'm talking about those of us who sometimes have access to the resources and we don't get up and take advantage of them. Have you? It's almost like, I know I've done it in terms of sitting in my house, sat in my house, you all, cold, about to freeze. And I said to myself, clown, why don't you just get up and go and turn on the thermostat? Well, in life, it makes me think about people who have access to things and don't get up and take access. So if we are going through that, let's be aware of the things that we have access to. And for those things that we don't have access to, then we can certainly talk about how to get access to them. But what we have access to, if we are believers, let's go ahead and believe. If we are overcomers, let's go ahead and overcome. If we're winners, let's just go ahead and win. Because what I'm saying is we have access to those things. We have access to the power to believe. We have access to overcome. And we have access to win. Let's just go ahead and do it. Let's go ahead and do those things. Have you ever heard anybody say about somebody else, oh, you know, that person has so much potential? I'm reading your comments. A few of you said you just did it an hour ago. Have you ever heard anybody say, you know, that person has so much potential? Let me tell you two things that I believe when it comes to potential. Again, thank you all for joining the conversation this evening. Why don't you come on over into the chat room and just chat it up with us, because we're talking about right now the potential to be, the potential to do, the potential to have, and having access to so many things. Here is what I believe when it comes to potential. Number one, I believe that potential is best when you no longer have it. I believe potential is best when you no longer have it. And I'll explain that in just a moment. But let me tell you the second thing that I believe when it comes to potential. Potential is an insult to God when you keep it all of your life. Potential is an insult to God when you keep it all of your life. And potential is best when you no longer have it. Cutler, why would you say that? Because if the only thing you can say about me is that, you know, he has the potential to do this, he has the potential to do that, yet I never do it. If God knows that he has given me the grace and the gift and the talent and the ability to do something and I never do it, so if he's given me the potential but I never do it, then in my mind, I believe that potential is an insult to God when all I do is keep it all of my life, but I never execute it. I believe the same thing. I believe that potential is best when you no longer have it. Not when you lose the ability to execute a gift or talent, but when all you have is potential and you never use it, that's not good. So potential is best when you say, oh, you know, she could have done this and he could have done that. And guess what? When you no longer say he could have done it or she could have done it, but it's best when you say, oh, she did that and he did that. So potential is best when you no longer have it. And it is an insult to God when you keep it all of your life. Sometimes we spend so much energy. I told you I only have 1,800 seconds, got to make every second significant, every minute meaningful. Sometimes we spend so much energy, you all, and effort trying to figure out what we are supposed to do. And one of the things that we cannot do is read God's mind. We try to figure out, what am I supposed to do? What is my purpose in life? And what should I be doing? But you all know we can't read God's mind. We can't read God's mind. So I say, do what you're capable of doing. Do what you enjoy doing. Do what you're good at doing, as long as it's good. All right? Do what you enjoy doing. Do what you're good at doing, and do what you are capable of doing. If you all, if I would have ever waited to figure out my purpose, I wouldn't be sitting here talking with you all today. If I would have waited to try to figure out what my purpose is, I would have never wrote these few books that I've written. Purpose, I hope I can help you all when I say this, because I mean it from my heart. And this really comes from one of those, I'm just trying to help save your life. Purpose is not always something that you know, but purpose is what happens along life's journey. You don't always know purpose, but you always live in purpose. You always live on purpose. Somehow you always execute purpose. Yes, there are some times when you have access and you know your callings, you know your direction in life. But for those of us, and I've been one of those who sometimes wonder, what should I be doing, and what is next in my life, and those kinds of things. Purpose is not always something that you know, but purpose is what happens along life's journey. Don't wait. Thank you, Nisi. Don't wait and let life pass you by. Don't do that, you all, because we get tripped up on trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do? And you know what we would do as a result of that? Just trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do? We go to psychics. We go to people and we have our palms read. We go and we ask different people if they have a prophecy, if they have insight. Can you lay hands on me? We ask for all of that, trying to discover our purpose. Y'all, stop trying to figure out stuff and just let it happen. Sometimes just let it happen. Trust that God has gone before you. You know, we're a spiritually based platform here. Sometimes you've just got to trust that God has gone before you. And whatever he allows to come, whatever he allows you to come to, you have to believe that he will give you victory over it. He will give you strength to endure it. And he will give you grace to navigate it, whatever it is. If he, we so many times I hear people quote these Bible scriptures and all of this stuff, and it's a part of the meditation and all of this. But I believe, for me, if he is going to bless me when I come and when I go and when I sit and when I stand and in the field and in the city, and if he's going to do all of that, here is what I'm content with. I am content that his favor goes before me, his peace goes with me, and his grace carries me. Again, you on the listen. I'm just trying. I'm trying to help save your life. I am content. This is me, and I want to give you this. I want to, if I could just pour this inspiration through this computer and get it right to you. I'm content with the fact that I don't know everything, but I am also content that God's favor goes before me. I am content that his peace goes along with me, and I'm content that his grace carries me. I sure am. I don't get lost looking for purpose. So let's do what we have the power to do. Let's be who destiny calls us to be. I only got 1,800 seconds and I'm still on this one. But really, you all, I believe this from my heart. That's why I wrote it in this book called Billboards to Better, because guess what? We are on this journey called better. So sometimes we don't see what purpose is until we get to that billboard. Oh, that's my purpose. You know what? I just did that. Sometimes we accomplish purpose, and we don't know that it was purpose until we accomplished it. I hope you all make a note of that. I hope you share that, like it and just, okay, all right. Sometimes we accomplish purpose and we don't do it until we've accomplished it. So you got lost on trying to find, absolutely. Don't get lost anymore. Don't wait and let life pass you by. Just jump on the highway. Just jump on the highway. I got to go on to the next one for November the 19th. Yeah. And thank you. I'm reading the comments. I'm reading your comments. A lot of times we wonder what my purpose was, but yeah, we got to be grateful for getting thus far along the journey. We've gotten thus far along the journey, and you can look back and see purpose, but you can't always look ahead and see purpose. So don't get tripped over on trying to figure out, and don't let people trip you up saying, well, what are you supposed to do? What did you go? You worry about your purpose and I'll worry about mine. All right. So then let's go on to November 19th. But we are working this thing out together. November 19th says, if you give God a house, he will give you a kingdom. If you give God a house, he will give you a kingdom. You are probably saying, Cutler, you just really wired up. And I know I am. But in terms of giving God a house, he would give you a kingdom. You all, when I was a little boy, and I must admit, even now, I reflect on this one story in the Bible where Jesus fed the multitude with a few fish and few loaves. And in my mind, as a little kid, I kept thinking, how in the world did he do that? Did new baskets of food magically appear? This is me, a little kid trying to figure this out. Did new baskets magically appear? Or did he just pour out of one basket into the other and the fish kept coming out and the loaves of bread kept coming out? I'm just trying to figure out, how was this miracle executed? I just could not figure out how this miracle rather was executed. But beyond the logistics of what that miracle might have looked like, I I often think now, what does that represent in my life? Because you see, I don't take those accounts as fairy tales or as fables, but I like to give them application to my everyday life. I really do. And that particular one says to me that God does not require a whole lot of us. It speaks to me in a way that says God does not require a whole lot of us. Because if he can provide a whole smorgasbord with just a few fish and a few loaves, imagine what he can do with our lives if we just give him a little. If we just give him a little. And I was trying to figure out the little that he requires. And I was trying to figure out what is the little that he requires. And just in an earlier conversation this week, I actually talked about the little that he requires. You all, he doesn't require a whole lot. He requires belief and love. Let this be one of these spiritual inspirational moments, because he doesn't require a whole lot. And a lot of times we have requirements of ourselves. We have requirements of others. Stop requiring so much of other people and stop requiring so much of yourself. You all know I'm here for you. This is the Let's Talk the Color. Let's see how we can leave better. Let's see how we can leave inspired and motivated. Stop requiring so much of yourself. Because if God only requires belief and love, why do we require so much of ourselves? Yes, Sonia, just give God a little. Belief and love is all he requires. Now, belief and love will play out in different ways in our behavior and our actions, but at its core, God only requires believing on him and loving our fellow man. And I wrote this quote because I thought about how blessed I am. The reason I wrote it in this book, because I thought about how blessed I am. I thought about how this little boy from this country town grew up on this dirt road and in this place where nobody had ever heard of. I thought about that little boy. And I thought about how he ended up traveling the world and writing books and having such wonderful people like you in his life. I thought about all of that, and I often reflect on why that happened to me. Why could this little kid who grew up in this town that nobody had ever heard of, he grew up on a dirt road, he grew up next to farms, working in tobacco fields and soybean fields, how could this little kid have grown up to travel the world, to have gone to law school, to have wonderful friends, to have written a few books? How could that little kid have all of that? Why, you all? It is because he didn't give God a whole lot, but he believed in God. And that little kid loved people and dared to love people when people sometimes didn't love him. I'm telling you, that little kid believed in that Bible story, even though he couldn't figure out how it was executed with the fish and the loaves of bread. That little kid believed that if you just give God a little, that God was awesome enough to turn it into a whole lot. He believed. He believed. And so, to put it poetically, that little kid wrote this book that says if you give him a house, he will give you a kingdom. He will give you a kingdom. And the house, you all, the house is not built. It's not built with brick and mortar and lumber, but the house is the essence of who we are. It is simply our hearts. If just give him your heart, and he would do so much with that. If you give him your heart, he'll exceed the capacities of your mind. Just a little. And so I've learned not to look for things. I've learned not to look for material, but and that's wonderful and that's good. And I'm grateful for all of that. But my ability to have peace in the midst of chaos, my ability to have hope in darkness, those are the greatest joys of my life. And I would have never expected God to give me so much. But that little boy gave just a little. And God gave so much in return. You all, I only have 1,800 seconds. You all can see by the moisture that has accumulated in my eyes that I'm sharing that, hoping that it inspires you to believe and to say, you know what, I'm going to lay hold to that. I'm going to grab a hold to that, and I'm going to believe that. All right. So listen, I would love for you. I would love for you all to just comment below or share the comments in there somewhere. But I believe that in the midst of this dark world, in this beautiful poem, Desiderata, the writer writes that with all of its sham and drudgery, it's still a beautiful world. And so in the littleness of who we sometimes think that we are, in the littleness of who we believe that we are, there is so much more when you get the little of who you are and the little of who you have, and the littleness of your heart, and watch it exceed the capacity of your mind. All right. So then you all, come back and share with me in this space and these public comments. If you're enjoying this conversation, please do a thumbs up and like the conversation. If you like it, share it with other people. I'm so glad. Thank you, my friend Brenda. Thank you for joining. All right. If you guys don't have this book, go on over and grab this. I want to go on over now to our quote for November 20th. And the quote for November 20th, it really flows right into what we just talked about. And it says, if you come clean with God, God will come through for you. Come clean, come through. If you come clean with God, God will come through for you. And I know sometimes we read this on the spiritual, on this platform, and it seems so deep and so mystical and so spiritual. But I like for us to talk so that I can give, modern application to it, practical application to it. And I tell you this, when I was a child, my mother would give us an opportunity to tell us the truth. If we did something wrong, mama would give us an opportunity to tell the truth. Now, mind you, she already knew the truth. And there were some parents who would tell you, and if you all know my mother, she's joining the conversation. If you all know her, call her and talk to her. But there were some parents who would tell you, now, if you tell the truth, I'm not going to punish you. That wasn't my mother. That was not my mother. We were disciplined for doing wrong, but there was some extra punishment if you lied. So I learned quickly to just come clean. I would just come clean. And I would tell you how that translated into my adult life. What I realized was that we place an unusual burden on ourselves to always be perfect and to always get it right and to dot every I and to cross every T. We place those unusual burdens on ourselves. And you all, I used to brag about being a perfectionist. Oh, I hope this is going to help you. I used to brag about being a perfectionist as if that were a huge compliment to who I was or thought I was. But you all, and I get the essence of what it means. It means that I strive to be my best. But when I thought about what a perfectionist really is and the psyche of a perfectionist, you put so much pressure on yourself, because every time you say that, or at least every time I would say that, I would set myself up for failure. I would also set myself up for sometimes not being open to constructive criticism from others because I was a perfectionist. All right. And I would set myself up for not being available to sometimes hear the things that would make me better because I was the perfectionist. And I would put myself in a place where I could only lift myself I could not lift myself beyond my own reach. Why? Because I was a perfectionist. And because I was the perfectionist, I could only lift myself as far as I could. But one day, you all, I realized that you can never heal yourself until you pay attention, or you can never be healed until you pay attention to your own wounds. You can never be healed until you pay attention to your own wounds. You can never grow unless you acknowledge that the dirt where you have been planted is dry and barren. Because if you don't come clean about who you are and about where you stand, if you don't come clean about what you need, then you will never have provision until you can acknowledge your need. Yes, God in his grace, sometimes he does all of that for us. But isn't it beautiful to know that your needs can be met once you acknowledge them? Once you acknowledge them, and you can never climb a mountain unless you acknowledge that you don't have the tools to climb the mountain. You just can't. So I I'm telling you, I'll share this with you all. Some of you all know that I have lots of nieces and nephews. With the great nieces and the great nephews and all of that, it's over 25 of them. So you got to be true to yourself. And I tell you what I've often told them. One of the lessons that I've always wanted them to learn is the art of communication. So while I might have known what they need or what they wanted, whenever they would call me or talk to me, I would never let them talk in circles. I would never let them beat around the bush. I would never let them put me in a place where they expected me to read between the lines. But what I taught them was to be open with your uncle with what you need, what you want, what you desire. Because while I may have it, the lesson is for you to learn how to come clean, how to be open, how to communicate. And it felt wonderful when they got the lesson, when they learned the lesson, when they learned the beauty of relationship, and that relationship requires dialogue. And when they learned that relationship requires dialogue, I could then transfer that into their life's journey and say, always come clean. Always come clean with who you are. Always come clean with what you need. Always come clean with where you are and how you show up. Be true. Yes, I see it in the comments. Be true to yourself. Be true to yourself. In other words, I wanted them to know that we have that kind of relationship. And how was I able to teach that to them? I was able to teach that to them because I learned it from my relationship with my mother, and I had learned it with my relationship with God. God does not expect us to be infallible. That's why I said we sometimes put that pressure on us. Just come clean with who you are. God doesn't expect you to be infallible, but he expects me to be committed. And he expects me to be candid. He expects me to be transparent. And with all of that, guess what? Then I can ask and I will receive. I'm trying to give you all inspiration this evening. I've learned, you all, to save myself the unnecessary headache and heartache of trying to figure out what people, what to do, what to say, all of this kind of stuff. I don't go through that. I don't make people try to read between the lines with what I have to say. I don't do it. But I come clean. And I do that in my conversations with dialogue with God. I'm telling you, even talking to him, even in praying, I just to help you all with this in your spiritual journey, I come clean with what's going on in my heart and my mind. I come clean with God about my anger, about my anxieties, about my sadness, about all the low moments in my life, I'm telling you. And I don't, thank God I don't have many low moments, but I come clean with all of that. I remember telling God, I don't know how to process the death of a parent. My father recently died, and I've come clean. I don't know how to process the death of a parent. But guess what? In telling him that and coming clean, I make it through each day. In the midst of this pandemic, those of you who really know me know how close I am to my mother, and not to be able to have access to her, physical access to her like I normally have, I've come clean with God, say, hey, I don't know how to process this. I don't quite know how to process this, but guess what? We talk every day, sometimes twice a day. Mom is on social media. We do FaceTime, family time. So I'm telling you, so God has come through in that respect. I didn't think my mother would ever be on social media, but she's all over the place. I mean, she would FaceTime me, I FaceTime her, we inbox on all this kind of stuff on these different platforms. Why? Because I came clean with God that this troubles me to be in this pandemic and not have access to her. So I now have access. Not the same way, but I have access. So I'm just telling you all this, that we talk every day and things are, and we're good. And those may be small examples, you all, but the lesson is that no one expects you to be perfect. So don't you expect it out of yourself. Learn to be honest with who you are, where you are, and what's going on in your life. Listen, from the East Coast to the West Coast. You all have joined me this evening. It's been a wonderful 1800 seconds, and I want to end by sharing something with you. All right. There's this poem in this book. This is my third book. This is my third book. And it says, I'm justified. I'm justified because a lot of times we think, we try to be perfect. We let people hold us up to these levels of being perfect and all that kind of stuff. No, I ain't perfect, but guess what? I'm justified. So let me share this with you. All of my hurt and all of my pain, he endured and took away the shame. For when I had sinned and come short of his glory, no longer wanting to tell redemption's story, unclean though I may have been, forgetting his blood was for the remission of my sin, yet when I kneel before his throne, he still declares that I am his own. By faith I'm justified, under his shadow I will abide, and in his love I can always hide, for I am justified by faith. For I am justified by faith and vindicated through his grace. Let every believer now proclaim that I am justified by his name. I have faith. I am justified. Listen, you all, this has been 1800 seconds. We made every minute matter, every minute meaningful, every second significant. And I have had the grand pleasure of sharing whatever space you've allowed me to share in your heart, in your home, in your living room, in your kitchen, in your dining room, wherever it may have been. I thank you so very much. And my mother reminds me that this is not my third book, but this is my second book. I get them confused. But thank you all so much. Until next Tuesday, I will see you. Let's continue doing what we do, you all. Let's continue building community, maintaining connectivity. Let's keep your heads up, your hope up, stay safe, and stay sane. Until next week, share love, you all, and have a great weekend.